So does this MAF test result mean the end of Project PB? Hi there, John, Brampton Valley Runner here. Welcome to week 3 of Project PB. Now, if you know what Project PB is, it's basically me recreating my training from last September again this year to see if I can get a PB at the Windsor Half Marathon at the end of the month. Because last year I got an unexpected PB at that race, so I thought this year let's recreate the exact same training I did using the MAF method, and we'll see if we get a similar result. If not, it'll be interesting to see how it goes anyway. So yeah, that's where we are, and if you've not seen the first 2 videos, I'll put links to them in the description below, and you can check them out if you want to. Okay, so the first one of the week is a 2-hour long MAF run down Brampton Valley Way. It's the first of 4 runs I've got planned this week. Now, last time I did it last year, I covered a distance of 9.39 miles, I average pace of 12:47, and for some reason I didn't record my average heart rate last time, but the low was 84 and the high was 143. And talking about heart rate, actually a bit of a schoolboy error, I forgot to bring up my heart rate monitor today, so I'm going by the older watch heart rate monitor today, and hopefully it's not going to derail me too much. We'll just have to see how we get on. So anyway, let's get started. Right, let's go. Okay, so I'm about 3 miles into this one at the moment, and I'm actually quite pleased with the way it's going. Although I'm relying on the wrist-based heart rate monitor, having the freezing heart rate and spikes I was expecting, because I'm predicting that though. I'm managed to keep it lower overall. My MAF heart rate is 140, and the highest it's gone so far is 142, because I'm stopping quite a bit below my MAF heart rate and walking, because I know that the spike's going to come. So yeah, it's going pretty well at the moment. Okay, it's just past the 1 hour mark, so it's time to turn around now. Okay, just leaving the pits for the Brampton railway station there, which I talked about in last week's video. And, yeah, about 5.5 miles into the run. Still keeping the spikes down. I think the most it's spiked is 144. So yeah, quite happy with that going still. Okay, that's the 2 hour mark. Okay, so that's the end of that run. I covered 9.34 miles, which is just a little bit slower than last time I think, off the top of my head. I'll have a look at the stats in a minute. The main thing I'm pleased about with that run is that I managed to get the heart rate down for most of it. I had one spike of 1.5, I think at the end of the run. Apart from that, yeah, it's pretty much under control. So yeah, let's have a look at the stats in more detail. Okay, so look at the stats from this year's run compared to last year. You can see that this year I was a little bit slower, covering 9.34 miles as opposed to 9.39 last time. That's obviously reflected in the pace, being 12.52 this time as opposed to 12.47 last year. And on my iPad, when I loaded the data, my average heart rate from last year suddenly appeared, whereas it wasn't on my phone when I looked at the start of the run. And it was 125 last year, and I'm pleased to say that this year I managed to keep it a little bit lower at 134. Look at the mile splits. You can see, as expected with the MAF method, there's a general downward trend in pace from start to finish, and that's especially true on flat routes, and this is a flat route. And you can also see the heart rate spike there at the end of this year's run. Okay, so now it's Tuesday afternoon, and today I've got hill training to do, and I'm doing MAF method style obviously. I'm doing 4 up and downs of a hill here that's half mile up and half mile down, so it's a nice long hill. And the reason I like using this hill is because you get lots of long downhills where you can get some good speed up. And it's also going to be useful going into the Windsor Half Marathon, because it's a very undulating route. Lots of ups and downs there, so hopefully I'll be able to practice my speed on the downhills today and see how I get on. Last time I did it, did a 1 hour 15 run. I covered a distance of 5.83 miles, a pace of 12.55. That was this time last year. And like yesterday, I've not got an average pace for some reason. I don't know what was going on that week, but there's no average pace from this time last year. Today I'm pleased to say I did remember to bring the heart rate monitor, so yeah, I should be able to have more reliable data today. I took my weight this morning, and today I weighed 199.8 pounds, which is about a pound less than this time last year. I'll put the data on screen for you now so you can have a look at that. And yeah, let's get on with the hill training. I've done a video before about how to do training with MAF Method and hills. I'll link that above if you want to check it out. But basically what I do is, on the uphill, I do uphill intervals, so I run for a bit, then when my heart rate gets near my MAF, I'll stop and walk for a bit, when it goes down I will run again. And then on the downhill bits, you can pick your pace up a bit, because your heart rate stays low because you're going downhill, and you get some speed practice in. Okay, so that's 2 up and downs done there, and I've got 2 more to go. I have one heart rate spike of 147, which is supposed to be expected going up the hills. Got some comments on Facebook and YouTube say not to worry too much about the spikes, so I'm trying not to, but yeah, still keeping an eye on it. Okay, just started on the last lap now. I might do a bit of high perhaps for you. Okay, that's the 1 hour 15 mark reached. Okay, so that's that one completed. I covered a distance of 5.82 miles, I think it was. Just a tiny bit faster than last year. I did 5.81 last year. Just flopping down to the hill, a little bit Brampton Valley way at the end there. I always enjoy that run. It's nice to get some speed up on the downhills, and there's lovely views as well from the top of the hill. Tiny bit disappointed with the heart rate spikes, but I'm going to try not to worry about it too much. Did have quite a few there, as opposed to last year. I didn't really have many at all. My highest heart rate was 144 last time. We'll look at the stats in a bit more detail in a minute. Okay, so you can see the data from both of the runs. And you can see this year I covered 5.82 miles as opposed to last year's 5.81. So pretty much exactly the same, to be honest. And that's reflected in the average pace of 12 minute 55 minute miles for both of them. And as you can see, the average heart rate this year was higher at 137 as opposed to last year 135. And like before, the data for last year's heart rate suddenly appeared on my iPad, whereas it wasn't on my phone when I was on the run. Moving on to look at the mile splits, you can see the heart rate spikes I was talking about on this year's run, as opposed to last year. I didn't really have any heart rate spikes at all, so that's the main difference there. Okay, so now it's Thursday morning. It's time for me to do my MAF test. I've done what a MAF test is. I've done a video about this before. I'll link that above for you. But in a nutshell, it's when you go out on a monthly basis, you find out whether your aerobic fitness is getting better by doing either the same distance or time. And I do distance, I do mine here down Brampton Valley Way on a 5 mile loop. And you go out and see if you're getting faster at your aerobic heart rate. So when I did this one last September, I did the 5 miles in 58 minutes and 19 seconds. My average pace was 11.39 and the average heart rate was 135. So let's go and see how I get on today. Probably won't film too much to it because I want to keep quite a close eye on the heart rate, obviously because it's the MAF test. Okay, let's go. Okay, so that's the end of the MAF test. Okay, so that's the MAF test done. And a quick look at the results shows that I was almost 4 minutes slower than last September when I did it. So yeah, that's not a great result, but a positive to take away from it is that I did actually keep my heart rate under control really well on that run. Only went up to 142 twice, so yeah, I'm really pleased with that. As far as the result was concerned though, it's pretty hot today, and there's lots of facts that affect your MAF test, so that could be one of them. But yeah, it's not a great result in comparison to last year. There's no get away from that. So does this MAF test result mean the end of Project PB? Well, I don't think it does. I think it's still a good chance I could do it on the day. Quite happy with where the training's been going this week so far, and you never know what's going to happen on race day. Okay, so look at the MAF test stats. You can see the difference here quite easily, because this year I did it in 1 hour and 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Last year it was 58 minutes and 19 seconds. It's nearly 4 minutes difference there. That's obviously reflected on the average pace at 12:24 this year as opposed to 11:39 last time. However, my average heart rate was a little bit lower, so I managed to keep it under control pretty well. Especially I was pleased with that because it was hot. It was 134 this year and 135 last time. Moving on to look at the mile splits. The main thing I take away from this is that my heart rate was kept under control pretty well on this year's run as well as last year's. Okay, so on Friday I went out for a run, and it was my final run of the week. It was a 1 hour run around my village, same as I did this time last year, and I covered a distance of 4.66 miles this time as opposed to 4.9 miles last year. It's a bit slower this time. That's obviously reflecting the average pace, 12:54 this year as opposed to 12:15 last time. However, I'm very happy that this year I kept my heart rate under control very well. The average heart rate this time was 132 as opposed to 135 last year. Moving on to look at the mile splits. You can see here quite clearly that this year I kept my heart rate under better control than last time, so I'm very happy with that. Okay, so that wraps up week 3 of Project PB. I have to say I'm quite pleased with how the week's gone. The runs have compared pretty well to last year apart from the MAF test result, and managed to keep my heart rate under control for most of the runs, so I'm happy with that. There's still a spike here or there. So I think it's been a pretty good week, and yeah, I think Project PB is still on going into week 4. I'll have to see how we get on next week, obviously. Next week's race week. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting week next week. Now next week I've got 2 runs planned, sort of mini taper really, 2 1 hour MAF runs, so I'll come back to see how I get on with them. And also next week we'll talk a bit about my nutrition strategy for the race day, and also I've got a few ideas for race day as well, so I'll cover them too. So if you like this video, please give it a like, consider subscribing to my channel for regular running related content, and why not share it with your friends. And check me out on Instagram, that's where I'm most active these days. I cover my training on there, so yeah, give it a look if you want to. But that's it for now, and I'll see you on race week. Okay, bye now.